Welcome to the WWE Slam, and we're going to get into everything happening in WWE. And there's a lot happening in WWE. Major return this past week. Braun Strowman returned to the fold in WWE. But there's one thing I need to talk about that is not WWE related. I know this is the WWE Slam, but right now the biggest thing going on in professional wrestling is not something happening in WWE. And they've certainly got a lot to talk about. It's CM Punk. And CM Punk and the media scrum and the reports backstage of the EVPs and CM Punk getting in a physical altercation. Tony Khan apparently suspending everybody, but CM Punk maybe got fired. Let me just say this about it, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on it because this is the WWE Slam, but with what CM Punk did, now, what I want everyone to realize is that whether or not this is a work, and I actually don't think it's a work, I think it's real. To me, it's irrelevant because this is. Let's pretend it's a work, right? Let's go down the path of this is all storyline. That still smells of desperation of what happened and transpired in that press conference that CM Punk did with Tony Khan right by his side. CM Punk's digging into like a sandwich or something. Just acting disrespectful, kind of the grumpy old man, calling out the younger guys that he just praised a short time ago, feeling like he's this entitled, I don't owe anybody anything type of attitude. And then Tony Khan sitting there, the owner of the company, sitting there, taking this from CM Punk. If this is, we're pretending it's a storyline, it's just not a good look for the company. Because if this was a storyline, it smells of desperation. You don't bring this up to the forefront. You don't use an angle like this. You don't try an angle like this if it's something that is something run-of-the-mill. You do this when you're desperate for attention because it is something that would be totally unique, totally different. It would get people talking. But it makes the company, whether it's storyline or whether it's real life, and I think it's real life, doesn't matter to me. Both look Little League. They look Bush League. It makes the company, especially the leadership in the company, look weak. It makes them look disordered. It makes them look like they're not a united front. It looks like total chaos in AEW right now. And that's not a good thing, even if it was storyline driven. I think it's real. So let's go down the path that I think it is. I think it's real. I don't think this is any kind of work. This is shameful on the part of CM Punk. And Tony Khan, let me just say, Tony Khan sits there. He's sitting here, like Punk. If I'm Punk, Tony Khan's sitting right here, the owner of the whole thing. And he's just sitting there with his, his eyes like this big, right? He's sitting there, but I think that's just kind of how it normally looks. And then after CM Punk ran down the EVPs of the company, ran down the company itself, ran down the young talent, all that. And ran down members of the media who were asking him questions in the audience. After he did all of that, Tony Khan, this is the part I really just, he gets on the microphone and says that he's not going to take any of this effing you know what. And he's like, I'm not going to stand for it. I'm not going to take any of this effing S, right? You just did. You just took it live for an extended period of time. I don't care how big CM Punk is in your company. He is not your company. He's not everything that this company is. He's a part of it. He may be a big part of it, but he is not the entire company. And he needs to take action. If I was Tony Khan, I would fire fire his ass so quick because it doesn't send a good message to fans and to everyone supporting that company and the people running it, the wrestlers inside the company, everyone, stakeholders, that you have a grasp on the business, that you are in control, that there is a hierarchy, that respect exists in the company. All of that went away in a CM Punk interview because of the arrogance that CM Punk that he brought to the table the grumpy old man. I don't owe you anything. I can, if I want to not be friends with somebody or be friends with somebody, I don't have to tell you, which I guess is all true. But just the tone and the feel of this man is not good. And I will be the first to say that I had and did pop huge when he returned to AEW, when he first returned to wrestling after 7 years. I popped huge. It was a big moment. Still gives me goosebumps. But man, lately, and just this past press conference, this past media scrum that happened after All Out, not a good look for Tony Khan, not a good look for CM Punk, not a good look for anyone involved. And the latest is that everybody that was involved there was an actual physical altercation that we didn't see in the locker room. Everybody apparently involved in that has been suspended. And there's rumors floating that CM Punk actually wants to leave, or that Tony Khan's really going to fire him, all that kind of thing. Kind of makes you glad maybe he didn't come back to WWE. That's not a poisonous personality that you want in that locker room. Let me just say that. It seems as if it's a very selfish, self-entitled, holier-than-thou type of ego that CM Punk, Phil Brooks has. And I'm not here for it. I don't care if it's story. I don't care if it's real, because both of them are bad scenarios. There's no good scenario. So the intrigue of, ooh, is it a work? Is it a shoot? Oh, wow, let's get into it. No, I really don't care whatever the decision is or whatever happened here. I think it's real. But I mean, I guess the one thing that AEW may be taking away from this is, wow, people are talking about it. That's what you want to hear, right? People want to talk about it. Or that creates buzz. Controversy creates cash. No. The whole controversy creates cash thing, I think, is a false narrative. Why? Because to me, yes, in the short term, any controversy may spike a rating. It may temporarily increase revenue and merchandise or whatever. But if the controversy is of a negative nature on the light of the company, if it reflects the company poorly, that will eat away at the company in the long term. It's not a sustainable long-term strategy to create controversy, or to try to put a positive spin on negative controversy. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. You may see an initial spike in your revenue and a spike in ratings, but it ultimately will turn out to be a negative. And this is going to be the case for AEW. Not a great look for them this past weekend, and I hope Punk is let go. I don't want him back in WWE. I don't need him back in WWE. I don't think he wants to, even though Triple H is back at the forefront and Stephanie's involved. I don't think that really entices him anymore, because he knows that both of them are, quote unquote, a chip off the old block, especially Stephanie. And Triple H and Phil Brooks, Paul Levesque and Phil Brooks, never, ever got along. That's well documented. So I think that even if Vince isn't in charge, and now that Triple H is, that may even more disincentivize Punk from wanting to come to WWE. Plus, Punk now really making a fool of himself on national television, showing how unprofessional he is, and even just putting down the company that's paying him hundreds of thousands of dollars to be there is not a good look. You don't publicly ram the company that's paying you. You don't bite the hand that feeds you, as they say. So anyway, a lot more I could say on this, but this is the WWE Slam, guys. When we come back, we're diving right into Monday Night Raw, the big Braun Strowman return, Dominic's heel turn, and much more. So stay right here. Welcome back to the WWE Slam. Let's dive into Monday Night Raw. More WWE content here. We'll shift away from AEW, even though there's so much more to break down. But for the time being, we're going to talk about Monday Night Raw. Let's start with the return of Braun Strowman. I don't know about you guys. I was mildly excited about this. He isn't somebody that I looked at when they fired him and go, oh my God, what an awful move. This is going to be the worst. I said, okay, well, that's a bit of a surprising cut. But I didn't look at this and say, wow, WWE is going to, they're going to go out of business, right? So when he returned to take out all the tag teams that were in that Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match, which, by the way, that Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match made absolutely no sense. You had people being able to tag in and out their own partners, being able to compete with themselves. Well, what if they never tagged anybody else in? Couldn't they just, compete with each other and then just have one of them Tap out. Like, for example, I know Kofi and Woods did that this past week where they tried to get a quick pin. Why wouldn't you have done a submission? Why would you not have done a submission where one of them just puts him in a headlock, the other one just quickly taps? That would have been faster than a 3 count. But anyway, it was a bizarre matchup. That didn't matter because the whole point of this was to set up Braun Strowman's return. And he comes out to a pretty good reaction. Like, was it earth-shattering? Was it, The Rock returning kind of pop? No. It was a Braun Strowman pop, and what I mean by that is, you hear the music. His music's very intense. It's very attention-getting. Braun! And then he comes out, and, he looked like $1 million. Pop was pretty good. He lost a lot of weight, and he clearly put some time into his physique, and good for him. Like, Adam Scher, which obviously is Braun Strowman, put a ton of time and effort into his physique, and I give him all the credit in the world for what he's done there. And so getting himself into shape, staying out of trouble while he's away from WWE, all that. Good stuff. So he comes out, he destroys all the tag teams, he puts them through tables, he falls, by the way. He was running around the ring on the outside, he did his stupid little this thing, right? As if I'm supposed to get excited that you were modeled after a choo-choo train. Like that, somebody must have been watching Thomas the Tank Engine and was also watching wrestling simultaneously, and somehow they made the connection of Thomas the Tank Engine and Braun Strowman. There's something here, guys. I wish that they dropped that upon his return here. Now, this is the time, especially with how long he's been gone, to refresh him, repackage him. I'm not saying put him in a mask or try to make him the Fiend or something like that, or make him... No. But the time and the place and the certainly the platform warranted itself and lent itself to being able to do that. You had this is the opportunity for you to kind of make tweaks to your character, and instead he came back as the exact same guy. It's not the worst thing in the world. I don't hate Braun Strowman. He's not particularly interesting to me. He's like mildly interesting only because of his size. But fans loved it, and I'm happy for him. And it is certainly a fun thing to see Triple H bringing these people back. And bringing people up from NXT and all that. It's not a sustainable thing, right? Like, you can't do this on a weekly basis. It's just not sustainable. Like, what are you going to do? Just flip the whole roster and have everybody a new person every week? It's not feasible. But what it does do, it sends a message to fans that, hey, these are the guys and gals that I felt were wrongly let go when Vince was in charge, and Triple H feels he can do more with them, and that's awesome, and so far that's been proven right. But also, whether this is intentional or not, or kind of a latent effect, is that it has created the environment that WWE has always told us that they are. And that is a anything can happen environment. And anything can happen at any moment. Expect the unexpected. We've heard that for how many years from WWE, and it's yawn-inducing. It's laughable because you knew that ain't really the case. Now, it is. Triple H has proven that he's able to create that environment and get that excitement back, that spark back that was missing. Now, time will tell if Triple H is going to succeed in this venture with the head of creative and the head of talent relations. That's a hell of a dual job. But right now, I have no complaints about Braun Strowman back. He destroyed everybody. He said he's coming to SmackDown to look out for SmackDown, which again tells you there is absolutely no brand split. There's no brand loyalty, none of that. But he said he's going to SmackDown. Now the question is, what is Braun Strowman going to do on SmackDown? Target Roman Reigns? Probably not. The reason I say that is because Roman Reigns is apparently not scheduled to appear at the next event, Premium Live event. He's not supposed to appear at Extreme Rules. At least that's the general thinking right now, is that he's not going to come back until Survivor Series, which is in November, for a program with probably Seth Rollins. That's what I'm hearing. Don't take that for set in stone, but that's what I'm hearing is Seth Rollins is going to face Roman Reigns at Survivor Series, and I think it makes a whole lot of sense. Yes, it's heel versus heel, but do you remember what happened with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns last year at Survivor Series? I do. Do you guys remember? if you don't, what happened was Roman Reigns beat Seth Rollins into a pulp, and it was never talked about really consistently again. I mean, it's been mentioned a couple of times over the last 12 months, but it really wasn't followed up on because at that time, they didn't have any mechanism to follow up on it with. Now you can go back to it, and Seth can use that as motivation to get revenge on Roman Reigns for what he did. Let me move my camera here. I'm getting a little bit low. For what he did to him at the last Survivor Series. So, that's what I think is going to happen, and that's actually rumored to be what's going to happen. But all right, let's get into the rest of Monday Night Raw before I rant on here. Let's talk about it. We got a Dexter Lumis appearance. Now, Dexter Lumis is a guy that, if you didn't watch NXT, you don't know too much about. He is a man of few words, and that's not necessarily a terrible thing, although eventually you have to learn how to, I think, talk on the stick. If you don't, you're kind of capping and ceiling, creating an artificial ceiling for yourself. But I think with Dexter Lumis, his look is so good that he may not actually ever need to cut a promo. His looks are hilarious. And this past week on Monday Night Raw, we had a cage match between The Miz and Bobby Lashley. And Dexter Lumis, as The Miz was about to climb over the cage, Dexter Lumis popped out and just stared at The Miz with this just blank, hilarious stare. I don't think it's meant to be funny, but to me it's hilarious. And I said somebody has to make a meme out of this. There's got to be a meme or some kind of GIF coming from that. But okay, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk a little bit more about that cage match with Bobby Lashley for the United States Championship and much more right after this. Okay, so Dexter Lumis, I just spoke about that, but the cage match itself, I don't know how The Miz earned this opportunity. No one ever explained it to us. He just suddenly earned an opportunity at the United States Championship. I didn't quite get that, but they worked well together, The Miz and Bobby Lashley, two veterans. Styles work well together. You know you're not going to have a bad match. It was good. The only problem I have, and this is a problem that I have with all cage matches in the modern era. I'm not trying to complain about this too much, but when you have a match, the cage match, for example, a match that is by design and purposefully built to keep people in the cage and minimize or eliminate outside interference. Now, we all know the outside interference thing is a fallacy because how often we actually see more interference in cage matches than we do in normal matches. I would love to see that statistic. But I love when the announcers try to sell us on, well, the cage is going to keep so-and-so out. Now it'll be a fair fight, which it almost never does because there are no rules in that match and somebody can easily just climb over. I mean, it's beyond elementary level thinking. But the biggest problem I have is not even the outside interference narrative that's always false. It's the fact that a match that's designed to keep people out and designed to also simultaneously keep the competitors in is also a match in which one of the methods of victory is to circumvent or go against the exact purpose of the match. Meaning, I'm just saying a roundabout way to say, you can win a cage match by just walking out a door, just trying to get out of the actual cage. How does that even make sense? How does that make sense that you can actually have a match in which there's a stipulation to that match and the way to win is to go against the stipulation of the match? Doesn't make sense at all to me. I've never, ever been a fan of that. And you know what? I would even let the over-the-top cage victory slide. But the biggest issue I have with all of this, as I'm going on my soapbox here, the way that you can win not only is, of course, escaping, but walking through the door. You just walk through a door? That's a way to win? How? In what universe? Right? In what effing universe is a method of victory to just walk through a door? Like, run away from your opponent. That's another problem. Not only is it going against the purpose of the design, but it also defeats the whole purpose of you being in the cage to compete with anybody, because all you have to do is try to run away. It's basically who's the better runawayer, right? Who's the bigger coward is essentially, I just have so many problems. To me, if you're asking, well, how would you solve this? Easy. Cage matches are pinfall or submission only, no exceptions. You want to escape the cage, go ahead, but it's not a falls count anywhere. You have to end that match. The fall or submission must take place inside the ring. Very simple. Don't make the match, you're really handicapping the match, because the match is supposed to be brutal. You can use the cage as a weapon, and it's not exactly Hell in a Cell, but you can still be brutal with cage matches, and yet you're softening them by allowing people to escape the very structure and use that as a victory method that you designed. And it also takes away the possibility of a pinfall or a lot of possibility of the pinfall or submission happening, because competitors know they can just run away. So more often than not, cage matches aren't that brutal because people just escape, and that's how you win. It's just preposterous. Am I the only one losing my mind over this? Probably. Okay, but the United States Championship obviously didn't change hands. Bobby Lashley retained, as he should. And, well, The Miz gets what's been happening to him the last 3 weeks. Dexter Lumis attacks. Dexter Lumis attacks, and that's how we went off the air. So, and nobody knows why Dexter Lumis is attacking The Miz, and I don't know if we ever will know. So... All right, let's see what else happened on Monday Night Raw. We also got Dominic Mysterio and the Judgment Day. I'm going to reserve that for the next segment because there's too much to talk about there, and I don't want to cut it with a commercial break in between. So we'll move into Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah taking out Doudrop and Nikki ASH after Rodriguez hit Doudrop with a Tahana bomb. So there's only one purpose of this matchup. The purpose of this matchup, well, actually I said it's twofold. Number one, to showcase Raquel Rodriguez. They clearly have high hopes for her. They're positioning her in a very high level. She's even had some I think she had a SmackDown Women's Championship opportunity against Charlotte Flair. Ronda Rousey, and nearly beat her. She went through that gauntlet match several weeks ago, and she took out like 4 women in a row before Shayna Baszler got to her. So they've done a nice job with Raquel Rodriguez. So I think that is priority number one. Priority number two is they're trying to establish a tag team division for the women. And by doing that, it, number one, doesn't make the women always look like every match has to deal with the championship. It can just be that the people in the division are trying to jockey for position and make a claim for eventually a title opportunity. So that's good. They're actually trying, and this is how you create a division. You put competitors in said division and have them compete, if nothing else, than for pride or just to rack up victories, other than for just a championship match. So I thought this match was fine. Raquel Rodriguez getting the victory made complete sense. Bianca Belair then challenged Bayley to a one-on-one match after being pinned by Bayley at Clash at the Castle, and Bayley basically turned her down. She said she has nothing left to prove, and Bayley said no, which doesn't surprise you. I mean, even though Bayley would be almost rewarded for a championship match, she still turned it down on the basis she has nothing left to prove, and saying that when she wants that championship, she will take it from Bianca. So it's not that as if she's disrespecting the championship, just saying she's going to do it on her own time. So that's no problem there. But I like how they're doing the slow build here with Bianca and Bayley. They're not rushing to it. They're not going right to it and having match after match after match. They're taking their time, which is a lot of what Triple H's motto has been with how long matches have been. And I know people of today's wrestling attention span is like this long. So anything over 5 minutes of a match, people are like, oh my God, can we get this over with? I love long matches. I love long story arcs. I love story arcs that make sense to go from here to here. And I think that's what they're doing with Bayley and Bianca. I hope that's what they're doing with Bayley and Bianca. I want a long-term story arc that maybe their first official match could be at Extreme Rules, could be at Survivor Series, but eventually leads to a one-on-one with these two and on a big stage like Rumble, Mania. That's the kind of stage we're talking about. So I no problem with this at all. All right, we're going to take another one of those beloved commercial breaks, but on the other side of this, we are going to talk about Dominic Mysterio and dive right into that. There's so much to talk about, so stay right here. So Dominic Mysterio and the Judgment Day. That was a storyline that was really woven through the fabric of it, the entire Monday Night Raw show. And that's nice. When you have a storyline that kind of weaves itself in and out of the show, that creates stability. It kind of creates a hook. It creates some intrigue because you're interested to see maybe what the next piece is, and it tells you where they are positioning this story. It shows you what they think of this storyline when they weave that story throughout the show. And this was definitely deserving of that. With Dominic Mysterio, he aligned himself with the Judgment Day. We didn't get an explanation from Dominic. We did not get an explanation of any sort. And I'm thinking the reason is we didn't hear him on the microphone because, well, let's just be real. Dominic isn't exactly a whiz on the mic. He's not. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying I could do it. I'm not saying, well, my God, how can he not know how to talk? There's a lot of people who still, at a high level, don't know how to cut a good promo, okay? And so I think that he did his talking, Dominic did, through his actions. The slicked back hair, right? The dark clothing, the dismissiveness of his dad, the attack on Edge again. All of that is great. Here's where I think they're going, though. If you heard Rey Mysterio, what did he say? He said that he would never, nunca, put his hands on his son, Dominic. And if you were a longtime wrestling fan from the late 90s, can we think back to another time in history in the late 90s where there were two family members that one of them attacked the other and the one brother refused to retaliate. The evil brother continued to attack him. Eventually, the quote-unquote the good or babyface brother finally had enough and snapped, and they faced off at WrestleMania 14. Of course, Undertaker and Kane. If you haven't seen that match or that build, it's one of the best builds and storylines in WWE history, and I'm not just saying that because it's nostalgic. It truly is one of the best stories ever told in WWE, in professional wrestling as a whole. So, I think that's what we have here. I think we have a bit of a rehash of 24 years ago with The Undertaker and Kane now making itself known or kind of adapting to the Dominic and Rey Mysterio storyline. So what do I think is going to happen after all that gibberish? I think what's going to happen is Rey Mysterio is going to continue to say he's not going to fight his son. He's not going to fight his son. He's not going to fight his son. And there maybe is a glimpse that he's going to one week and then he's decide, he's going to stand up and then he just takes the beat down from his son. And little by little, chip by chip by chip, he's going to whittle away at the will of Mysterio to not put hands on his son. So what's going to happen is Dominic's going to eventually have to do something so heinous or threaten to do something so heinous that Dominic or Rey has no reason or no objections to having his hand is forced to putting his hands on his son, to eventually snapping and attacking his son. It's going to be a while, though. I think this is probably not going to happen at next month's pay-per-view. We'll continue to see the program move along, but I don't think you're going to see Rey Mysterio snap probably until late December, maybe early January before the Royal Rumble, and eventually leading to a matchup. Now, the question is, with WrestleMania, how many months away? Like 6 months away or 7 months away? Maybe more. This is a hell of a storyline to go out that long with. Could you make it work? Yeah, you could make it work that long, but ultimately I think what's going to happen is it's probably going to they're going to have a blow off likely sooner than that, because I don't know how they go from August, or rather September, early September, all the way to early April and keep things interesting. Maybe they can do it, and if they can, great. But I would say that Dominic as a heel instantly, like overnight, became infinitely more interesting to me. Now, yes, he didn't talk, and eventually he's going to have to learn how to put the microphone up to his lips and cut a promo, because he can't just live on, well, he's good in the ring and he's with the New Day or the Judgment Day, but we don't know why. He's eventually going to have to cut some kind of promo. We are due an explanation. We can't be just given the assumptive reason by the announce team of, well, you know, Ray chose Edge over his son to face the Judgment Day at the Clash of the Castle event. You know, I think that maybe have been the straw that broke the camel's back, but that can't be the only explanation from Dominic. There needs to be something more solid, and really there's a lot of history to pull from. But my point is, I think this was an excellent move for Dominic in his career. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. The Judgment Day, I think one of them, is it Damian Priest that's going to face Edge next week? I'm not sure. There was a matchup that was made for Edge next week, even though they put his leg in a chair this past week. So I guess they're being very assumptive themselves of thinking that Edge could actually be here next week given his injury. But we will see. Okay, Kevin Owens takes on Austin Theory after hitting him with a stunner. Owens and Theory traded verbal barbs beforehand, with Owens mocking Theory for getting knocked out by Tyson Fury at Clash of the Castle. And by the way, also hilariously pointing out to Theory that he somehow found his first name again, because he is now looked at as Austin Theory. He said, Vince, I guess, chopped off the name. I'd imagine that he didn't want Austin Theory because of the proximity to Stone Cold Steve Austin. So Austin Theory and Steve Austin, I think clearly that is the reason that Vince probably X'd it. But Triple H okayed the idea. We have Austin Theory once again. Maybe Riddle can find his first name. Maybe it's on the island of Misfit Toys with the other name. I don't know. But maybe people have suddenly stumbled upon the locked room that Vince McMahon had, the secret room in his office, or a safe or something, where he kept all of the people's names, the first names that he's chopped off over the years. And that's a big list. So, maybe, and I did hear somebody say Matt Riddle on Raw. So I don't know if that was a Freudian slip or if that is real. I don't know. But regardless, I think that it's good that Austin Theory has his first name back. I hope Matt Riddle also gets his name back and reclaims his identity, because, I do think Matt Riddle has a nice ring to it. Okay, that's the conclusion, I think, of Monday Night Raw. We have, we have Seth Rollins and Riddle. I'll get to that. And we have Damian Priest taking out Rey Mysterio. So we're going to talk about that, and then maybe look ahead a little bit to Extreme Rules and, of course, the next big event, which is Survivor Series, right after this. Welcome back to the WWE Slam. Guys, if you want to, by the way, follow us for all other audio that we do, you can follow us at the WWE Podcast. We're available everywhere that podcasts are available: Apple, Spotify, Spreaker, that kind of thing. Or if you want to go ad-free, patreon.com/WWE Podcast is a great way to support the show. We put out like 6 shows a week. So, okay, let's get into a little bit more here. Johnny Gargano, after being interrupted by Theory during a backstage interview, announced he would return to the ring next week on Raw. So great that WWE and Triple H has begun to really get you excited about the next week. And without giving away the farm and giving you away potential main events, he's still giving you something to look forward to. And instead of going, I have no clue what's going to happen on Raw, they've given you a little bit of a structure, an outline, a skeleton of what could take place or what will take place. So Johnny Wrestling is going to be coming back next week to the ring. Who he's going to face, I don't know. Maybe The Miz, or rather Theory, we'll see. Damian Priest took out Rey Mysterio after planning him with South of Heaven. And then Dominic, as well as Rhea Ripley, distracted his dad to give Priest the opening. Rhea announced Dominic versus Edge for next week. Not Damian, I got them mixed up. So Dominic is actually going to face Edge next week. That's interesting. I'm surprised they're giving that match away right away, but I would also think that there's going to be a lot of physical interference in this matchup, a lot of distractions, and a lot of influence from the Judgment Day themselves. So, okay, Seth Rollins then rejects Matt Riddle's demand for a rematch. This was a segment recorded immediately after their Clash at the Castle match, so it didn't take place live on Raw, but for those that didn't see the digital exclusive, this gave you a little bit more as to what transpired on the show for Clash at the Castle, and Riddle wanted another rematch with Rollins, and Rollins, who I think it was Sarah Schreiber, caught him on the way out of the arena, and Seth just laughed it off and said he's on to bigger and better things. I think we all know what that bigger and better thing is. It has to be the undisputed Universal WWE Heavyweight 24/7 European Championship. That has to be what it is. Of course, I'm being a little bit over dramatic with the name of the championship, but that certainly is what's, I think, going to happen. Now, I think that covers the gist of Monday Night Raw. The one thing I want to talk about with Clash at the Castle, and this is a bit of a review, but I'm not going to go through match by match, just kind of high level. I thought it was one of the best pure wrestling events that WWE has put on in years and years and years. I don't even know the last time. It may be of decades, because I don't even know the last time I felt dissatisfied from just pure wrestling. And of course, this was headlined by Sheamus and Gunther. Gunther and Sheamus, my God, did they kill themselves out there. They really put themselves out there. I mean, Sheamus, the blood vessels just popping in his chest, the physicality, the actual stiff arms that they gave each other, the stiff kicks they gave each other, all of this was just so well done, and it was so nicely paced. It didn't feel rushed. It didn't feel like 100 miles an hour like so many matches do today. It was brought back to the old school, and it showed you that you don't need to flip-flop and fly to have a really great match. I mean, this to me was like 4.9, arguably 5 out of 5 stars, arguably, but there's some pretty good contenders there if you want to compare real 5-star matches to the match you just saw. But definitely match of the year candidate with Gunther and Sheamus. But it showed you don't need to flip-flop, fly, and do gymnastics to get a reaction out of the fans. It showed you can slow down and let the fans absorb what you're doing, so you're not going so quickly and just registering but not selling. And it also put prestige, a lot of prestige, instantly back into the Intercontinental Championship, which, just think about where it was a few months ago before Gunther got it. Right? Was it Ricochet who held it, I think? And like, how did we feel anything for Ricochet? I know I haven't, nor do I feel anything for Ricochet, but this whole thing did so much for so many things affected by this matchup were benefited because of the matchup. And credit to Sheamus, credit to Gunther, Walter, anyone involved in the matchup. Triple H for giving enough time to tell the story he wanted to tell with these two. They absolutely killed it. The crowd was super into it. Sheamus instantly turns into a babyface. For better or worse, he is. And I think they'll probably have a rematch at Extreme Rules on October, I have my chart over, my handy dandy chart. October 8th is the next pay-per-view or premium live event entitled Extreme Rules. So I think that they'll have one more match before they both move on at Survivor Series, whatever they may do, probably Gunther and Bobby Lashley. But I would say that when you look at Clash at the Castle as a totality, though, that's where I was going. If you look at Clash at the Castle as a totality, it totally over-delivered. The main event is the one I have a problem with. The main event of the show, Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre. Disappointed. Disappointed is the word. Angry is the word. A couple of other non-favorable adjectives. And it's not because I'm angry at the character Roman Reigns. And I would pay money like subscribe to the network specifically to see somebody take down Roman Reigns. It's been over 2 years now. He's at 740 days or something. It's heat on the company now. And I'm surprised, I'm really surprised with Triple H in charge that we got this kind of outcome. And then having Drew and Tyson Fury just start singing, Bye Bye American Pie at the end of this. It was just like, bye bye your career. Like, what is going on? Why, after your one of the biggest losses and embarrassments of your career, you're out there singing with Tyson Fury? Why? But the reason that Roman won was a new member was introduced into the bloodline, which were the younger brother of Jimmy and Jey Uso. And I don't have a problem with a new member. I just have a problem with, so many people are just so ready for Roman to drop the belt because it's time. It's just time. And the guys on Raw are really hurting because I know that the Universal Champion, the Undisputed Champion, can go anywhere, but let's face it, Roman Reigns barely comes to Monday Night Raw. He's almost never there on SmackDown. So, it is very much still a SmackDown Championship, even if it is not officially won. So, I think the guys on Raw are getting a little bit sick of not having a top championship. They have the United States Champion in Bobby Lashley, but still, I think that this is something that WWE and Triple H, I was just, again, very surprised at the outcome. So, all right, one more break, and then after this, we're going to wrap up a little bit about Clash at the Castle and have a little more fun. So stay right here. All right, guys, let's wrap up the show here, and I want to talk a little bit more about this main event. Again, Triple H in charge is really what made me think that this is going to be a massive message he's going to send to fans, that I hear you loud and clear. This is your number one complaint. I'm going to just give you guys what you want because, frankly, the payoff at this point can't be enough, and I'll get to that in a second. But Triple H had the opportunity and he's been sending great messages so far to fans, the things he's done, the camera angles, the tweaks on production, bringing back stars Vince fired, all great stuff. But he could have really made the ultimate message and sent the ultimate message to fans, stakeholders, stockholders, everyone, and had this be a Drew McIntyre victory, and also give Drew his deserving moment in front of fans. Drew has not had that yet in terms of a championship match. And winning a championship in front of fans, much less as close to his hometown as he's going to get. They could have done that, and they didn't give Drew the moment. He didn't do it. That's the only problem I have with this pay-per-view, which is why I'm not going to give it exactly a 5 out of 5 stars. But what I will say about the whole fact with the main event and how this was, again, Triple H at the helm and he had an opportunity to send a message. I think that when you look at this, though, there's no payoff that WWE could have that would be big enough for us to look back and go, man, I was critical at the time, but damn, they got me, and good grief, I should listen to them and just let them string me along. They know better than me. There's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can tell me as to who or why they continue with this Roman Reigns run. I'm angry. The heat to me is on the company and the creative decision to keep Roman champion. It's not with Roman Reigns, which is not the heat you want. And that's why I'd argue there's differences in heel heat, because the heat isn't on the heel, it's on the company. And having people not want to tune in or just go, come on, guy, can we please move on with him as champion? That's not a reaction that you want. It's not the desired reaction. But there's no payoff that's going to be so big that you're going to look back and say, those sons of guns got me. That was totally worth it. I really don't think that there's anything that they could do. Bring The Rock back? He should be coming back anyway. That is, And by the way, I don't want him challenging for the championship. It should be a non-title match between The Rock and Roman. Head of the table matchup. Who's the true head of the table? Bring up family events, all that stuff. That is all something that you could do. And I don't know. I just don't think that there's anything that they could do at this point that would make me all giddy about what they could. And anyway, so I'm rambling, but just wanted to get that out there. And overall, I thought it was a very solid week for WWE. Very solid. A very cringeworthy week for AEW. Just a week that they want to forget, that it existed. But they have a lot of mess to sort out there over at AEW. And I do not envy those that need to do it, because it is going to be a tall task to sift through all that stuff, figure out who should get fired, who should get suspended, who should not get anything. All that kind of stuff based on the level of involvement and level, all that kind of thing. So certainly a messy week for AEW, a big week for WWE with returning stars and just kind of that feeling of giddiness that Triple H has taken over. And I think fans and really wrestlers alike feel that same way. So that pretty much does it for me tonight, guys. I really appreciate all of your support. If you want to watch, or rather listen to more of us, the WWE Podcast is where it's at, or Patreon. Patreon.com/WWE Podcast. For just $1 a month, you get hundreds of our shows ad-free, you get shout-outs. It's just a great bargain for just, $1 a month? Come on now. All right. So, everybody, thank you so much for listening. I will catch you guys on the WWE Slam next week. Until then, take care. Hey, did you love what you saw on the WWE Slam? Well, there's a whole lot more where that came from. The WWE Podcast is produced every single day. We cover Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, NXT, AEW, every single live event, and much more. So check us out. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, and Patreon, where you can go ad-free for just $1 a month. So check us out, guys. We also have a website, WWEpodcast.com. Don't miss an episode. Support the show, and thank you so much.